Today on the Take On Board podcast, I'm speaking with Alice Tang about the use of AI in board meetings and by boards. We might also touch on digital and AI strategy and governance. Before we start the podcast today, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record. For me, I am on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. I also pay my respects to any First Nations people who may be listening today. I acknowledge their continuing connections to land, waters, skies, culture, and country. As I'm sure people will have heard me say, I support voice, treaty, and truth for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in Australia, and I encourage others in the Take On Board community to do the same. Now, let me tell you about Alice. So, Alice is on the board of Amplify AI Proprietary Limited and was previously trustee and manager. And was previously trustee for a listed fund manager managing $10 billion in assets. She's also been treasurer and board member for a disability arts board. Her executive roles include 6 years as chief operating officer of a listed alternatives assets manager and 16 years at Macquarie Group. A fellow of the Chartered Accountants ANZ, she is on the committee of 100 Women in Finance in Australia, the UNSW Alumni Advisory Committee, and is Secretary for Women in Super New South Wales. Welcome to the Take On Board podcast, Alice.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Oh, it is awesome to have you. And as I said off air, we're doing this little mini-series about AI, so it's really great to be able to dig into it. But before we do that, Alice, as you know, before we dig into the topic, we always dig into the guest that we have before us. So tell me, what was young Alice like, and when did you get your first inkling that you might end up in the boardroom?
I came to Australia, immigrated here with my family from Hong Kong when I was 9. And when I first arrived, actually, I didn't speak much English, but I must say I love Australia and all the opportunities that I've been offered. Having sort of battled through that in my high school, I ended up getting a scholarship when I was at uni. And then I spent time at Deloitte, where I got my chartered accountancy, and then the 16 years at Macquarie. My first board was actually the CA at ANZ had a pro bono initiative, and then I put my hands up to be on the board of the disability arts sector. And this was back in 2004. It was a while ago. And for that role and as treasurer, it was, and I think for many directors, I think you will find the same, it became a little bit more hands-on in terms of guidance and best practice. So I really enjoyed that aspect. In terms of my other directorships, so my last big ones was 6 years as executive directors on the trustee and the manager boards for the assets. So and I guess because I was in asset management for a long time, a lot of my time has been dealing with global institutional investors when we have these real estate and infrastructure funds while during my work at Macquarie. So I really enjoy being able to provide a level of assurance when I'm on the side of the executive side. And which also gave me the confidence of making sure that I am fulfilling my fiduciary duties when I'm acting as director.
Yeah, interesting. So you've got both sides of it there. Interesting. Yeah. Well, it'd be great to dig into that a wee bit more as part of this conversation. I'm wondering. I just want to dig around a little bit more with young Alice again. So what was it, do you think, that sparked that interest? Maybe from young Alice days, maybe not. Maybe it was something that came on later. I don't know. Was there anything that in those younger days that might have given you this little inkling about the future?
Actually, the advice I had from my dad is if you don't know what you want to do at uni is to do accounting. He was an accountant himself. I think it seems, and certainly I'm talking about, well, dare I say 25 years ago, the professions is a good one in terms of getting that skill set. And accounting, and I believe it. I think the other advice he gave me is like every company needs an accountant, and certainly as an executive or as a director, you need to know the financials of your company. So that is the backbone, I guess, in my career. I don't use accounting every day, but all the aspects that goes around accounting. So be it internal controls or fraud management
Mm.
or managing the cash flow and the forecast of the company. Those are skills that is pretty
Yeah.
critical as a director, but also in I guess our personal life as well, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's probably probably infused in me for a long time. Yes. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. All right. Thank you. Thanks for letting us dig a little bit around in there. So let's turn to our conversation today about AI in board meetings, AI used by boards. You serve as secretary, I think, or have and do serve as secretary. Tell us about what's your experience. And
Yeah.
yeah, tell us about your
So
experience.
I'm serving on 3 committees at the moment, one of which as a secretary. And the debates around using AI is there in terms
Yeah.
of it certainly helps with writing the minutes, but are we all
Yes.
comfortable with using AI
Yeah.
in those committees?
Yep.
And it's the nitty gritty detail is like actually what should we use if we were to use something? Where is the data
Yeah.
stored? How long is it kept
Yes.
for? And certainly, there's no doubt that every committee is like, but we need a human to be reviewing the minutes. There's
Yeah.
no way that you would prepare the minutes and then it just is the final record.
Mm.
So for two of the committees, we do use AI tool in terms of the recording of the meeting. And they are actually provided by the sort of the broader institution. So I think we ended up being comfortable with using those. But I think that's probably one question that often gets asked because that is seems to be a sort of a low hanging fruit use case. And when I speak
Yeah.
to directors, I think one wish list that I get often is like, oh, sometimes it's so hard to find which paper that particular
Yes.
item was discussed last and what are the details. So being able to, I think with a wish list is like being able to have an AI where you can go into your meeting at depth or meeting minutes or probably sometimes their own notes. Yeah. But I haven't investigated as to, the feasibility of any sort of commercially available tools.
Okay. It's interesting. This is not AI so much, but I did a podcast a while ago with somebody about the use of just digital literacy, I guess, in the
Mm.
boardroom. And I'm slightly embarrassed to admit this, but I will. For some of the boards that I'm on, we use Diligent. I didn't even know there was a search function in Diligent. So leaving aside AI, that I could search for,
Yeah.
I don't know, the AI policy or whatever it might be. So even just having that search for key documents, it was like, oh, that's helpful to know. And searching for my own things. So that, yeah.
It's interesting. I
Okay.
think with many AI tools is that we don't realize how many functions they have. Like ChatGPT, for example, have like 30 functions and as a general AI tool, but probably most of us just use one or two. So that's definitely, yeah, like just something that we're not aware of. Yeah.
Yes, I am. Again, I'm squeamishly admitting this. I do feel like I use ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT and Claude, and oh god, I can't even remember what the Google one is, but whatever the Google one
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
kind of chop and change between them. Um, and I definitely feel like I use them as an old person. Like I feel like I use AI. It's like I'm googling, but within AI. So I do very much feel like an old person in the way I use it. But I figure the more I use it, the more I might become comfortable and experiment and do different things with it.
Well, I think that's actually the number one advice that we give. Like, firstly, every AI tool has their strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. Like
Mm.
ChatGPT writes these long words that actually no one speaks like this. So Claude is
Yes.
actually a much better writer, generally. And
Mm.
then the other thing is just being able to use it every day, like either in your personal
Yeah.
life or for your work. And if you don't have a paid version, then don't put anything confidential in, but certainly being
Yeah.
open on your browser, it reminds you to use it. And I think that's so important. I feel it's hard for directors when they have so many things that they have to be conscious of now and are responsible for, but now we've added AI on top of that. But it's hard to come up with a direction in terms of for the companies that you're sort of on the board of if you don't use it at all. I think it's really difficult. Yeah.
So I just want to dig into that part then briefly. It's not so much about boardroom use, but it is about individual directors' use. Because you talked about earlier for boardrooms thinking about where's the information stored, how long do we keep it for, who has access, those sorts of things. And now you'd said, if you're using a free version of insert Copilot, don't put anything confidential in there. So for directors that are using it individually rather than as the board overall, what should we be on the lookout for? And if we've got a paid version of Claude, ChatGPT, whatever, what does that save us from? But what does that leave open?
Yeah, so the free version, essentially you're giving all your data away, your prompt, your personal information, that all gets sent to whichever country that the LLM is based. So if you use DeepSeek, that's going to China. If you're using OpenAI or ChatGPT, it's going to the US. And I guess there's a question of, not only how those AI companies are storing your data, but they can also be hacked, right? We're not necessarily talking about the fact that, they just want to leak your information elsewhere, but so whatever you put in, and searching the free versions give you no protection. The paid version do, and so, but also the hacking doesn't cover it, right? So I think as we head into the digital age, our digital footprints is everywhere. I think that's why they say, Google your name and you can see, where it appears. But the paid version generally have a time period of say 90 or 150 days where they confirm that they will delete your data. But they need to keep it for that time because sometimes they monitor it for abuse and other reasons. So that's the official reason that they give. But even if you have a paid version, do just check that you go into the security and data controls and turn off the reference where it says, can I share my data for training? That's definitely in OpenAI, but I think all the other ones would be the same. A paid version doesn't default to that, unfortunately. So just even when you pay, make sure that you check that is the case. And I think with the paid version, or, even if you've got that legal protection, I think the question then still remains how much of your personal data that you want to put in. And I know some directors would do research or would put in sort of desensitized data about the companies they're serving on into the LLMs. But you just got to be really sure that you're desensitized all the information so that you can't reference it back to the companies if that is a path that you wish to take.
Yeah,
that's a bit of a
rising anxiety just thinking about it. Like I don't have the technical capability to desensitize the data that I would be using. So, oh my gosh, so many questions, Alice. I don't really know where to start on this.
And actually, my first question is, does your board, like before you put any data in, does the board you're serving on and the company you're serving on as a director of, do they have an AI policy? That would be the first thing to look at, right? Like, should board members and how does employees currently, I think AI policy is critical. Even if you don't believe in AI, an AI policy for your board is so important because otherwise people will have no guidance as to what they should or shouldn't do. And I think some AI policies that I've seen are really wishy-washy, but I think it's actually, like we go into that detail we just talked about, right? Actually, are we comfortable with putting in desensitized data?
Yes.
I think that's a conversation that is really important. And what does that look like? What does it mean to have desensitized data? So if you keep it at too high a level, then, people could either have, like if you have no policy, people will do all sorts of things. If you have a policy, if it's too high level, then it's not clear what you can or can't or should or shouldn't do. And then if you also I think the other thing that I'm conscious of, if you give people no AI tools, then they will just use it on the side. So that is also not a good outcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I was going to raise, is that I've seen AI policies which basically say, nope, can't use any of it. And then people just do.
They do. They do. I think she's interesting. Australia, there was a study done that was last year. Australia has the highest per capita usage of AI tools globally. Singapore was second. So if we think
Wow.
about that, what does it mean? Like people are using it all the time, but if your
So
firm,
interesting.
if your company doesn't actually allow it, so are they only using it personally, or are they using it for work? And so I think the
Yeah.
policy, I think that's why I really truly believe, even if you don't use, even if your firm doesn't have an official sort of use of like tool, you should at least have a policy. But I think it's
Yeah.
better to a tool of some sort, or so that people won't use it sort of on the side. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So for boards using it themselves, think about what check the policy,
Mhm.
check if one exists, check if the policy is, too high level or even on the other end, too
Yeah.
prescriptive,
Yeah.
particularly because AI is changing so quickly. Um, and then I think I heard you say before about being secretary on some of these boards and using it for minutes and so on, that the committees that you've worked with are using already an internal kind of enterprise AI rather than an off the shelf AI tool. Yeah. Is that what I heard?
It's like as in the global organization have a tool. So that's the
Yes.
one that
Yes.
the I guess the regional
Yes.
uses, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Rather than
And
one that we source ourselves, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
And so then that, because it's already used by the organization, that fully aligns in terms of where the information is
yeah,
stored, who has action, how long it's held for, those sorts of things.
yeah,
Hopefully it's all aligned to the
yeah.
policy. Um, so if people are on boards of organizations that have that already in place, that's great for them. I'm wondering if you've got any advice for those organizations that don't have that in place, both what they should be looking for. So I'm already hearing, as I say, where's the information stored, who uses it, who has access, and so on. So is there anything else they should be looking for? And then I want to dive into how you actually use it.
So I think for AI tools generally, it comes down to risk appetite. So if I
Yeah.
talk about like maybe outside the boardroom, so image generation tools, um, I can name names. So at least one image generation tools actually gives you the IP protection. So they actually say if
Ah,
if you get sued, we stand by the training materials that we have. I think only one
interesting.
firm does that. So I guess it
Mm,
depends on how how does the company is currently using it.
yes.
And there are also obviously on the IP side, there's many lawsuits out there at the moment talking about IP, specifically on what material's been trained. So that's definitely the review of the legal contract is very important in that sense, in terms of how you're using the tool, what your appetite is.
Mm,
Um, so data storage, and it's sort of use case driven, right? So I think certainly for our government entities, the data sovereignty is very important. So
mm-hmm.
where is your data going? If you're
Yeah.
working with government boards, I don't think it can go anywhere outside of Australia. So really looking at your organisation's use case, uh,
Mm,
and then and I like to think of it as sort of the usual things, right? The privacy law isn't a new law. Privacy law is already there.
yeah.
How do you
Yes.
apply, and all intellectual property? So how do you apply this to
Yeah.
AI? I think that is less overwhelming to go. Actually, it's all new and it's all too hard. I think looking at your
True.
existing sort of risk management framework or making sure your management team have would be
Yes.
a better start.
Yes. And even, that reminder there about risk appetite.
Mm.
It's what's the risk appetite around tech and
Yes.
data,
Yes.
and using that as a guiding document as well. Like go back to the policy, go
Yeah.
back to your foundations,
Yeah.
folks. See
Yeah.
what is already in place. A lot of it will already be there, hopefully. Like, hopefully there's an AI policy or a digital policy.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
there's, yeah, I love it. Okay. So so people go back to basics, find out all of that stuff, set up your processes in line with. Now, how have you used it? How have you used AI in the boardroom?
So actually, it's mostly the minutes is probably the key
Right.
one. Actually, haven't
Yep.
you delved into other aspects personally or in the communities that I've served on? But
Yes.
the AI strategy is definitely one I think is taking place in every boardroom.
Yes.
So for my sort of consulting business, I get a lot of senior execs going, actually, my board has asked about my AI strategy. That's why I need some help. So I think
Yes.
the progressive boards are actually asking the question, how do you, how do you think about AI and digital? And I think
Yep.
I get it. Like there are people who have either no time or are skeptical as to what AI tools can bring, and so often it's like the board asks the CEO asks the chief technology officer, and
Yeah.
chief technology officer gets something that's really off the shelf. But that's not really
Yes.
AI strategy. I think AI strategy needs to talk about the policy, have clear accountability, and think about what
Yeah.
the impact AI and digital have on your company. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I like that kind of almost inverted commas back to basics. Like, look at the strategy and what it is you're trying to achieve and how AI fits into that,
Mm.
rather than AI as an end
Yes.
in itself. It's like, how is it going to help us do what we've already said we are going to do,
Yeah.
not how we're going to go frolic off down that path.
Yeah, you're not looking for a problem to solve, right? You should have a real problem that you want to solve. And I
Mm,
think,
mm.
yeah, so organizations should really think about that. And the capabilities are there, but it needs some work. I don't think it's just going to fall out of the
Yes.
sky. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Have you got any stories you can share with us about where it's done well?
In terms of, firstly, again, back to the paid tools, I think that's the basic. You must get a paid tool, should not use
Yes.
anything at all with the free version.
Yep.
In my experience, firms that have a paid tools, I've got some data around that. Team members would use it 100 times a month. So there
Mm,
should be real productivity gains. There were some study maybe 12 months ago. The consulting firms found that on average it improved productivity by 40%, and I think for data engineers it was 70%. So how many
yeah.
digital transformation programs do you get a 40 to 70%
Yes.
productivity gain? Very little, right? So making the use of the most basic tool that you have, paid version again, and getting the most out of it is a great investment. The
Yes.
other sort of low hanging fruit use case, I think, and I think many big organizations have done this, but it's not, in my mind, very expensive, would be a chatbot style use case.
Mm,
So the chatbot can ingest your company's policies, and that
yes.
can be a great tool for onboarding your team members. Or if you have a client service team, being able to put in sort of your operating or sort of complaints manual, like, the policies and procedures that you're very confident of being of very high quality.
Yes.
And then they can help you write responses or when they're on the phone. I think that's a very sort of low cost, high impact use case. Um, if you were to build that on your own, I would recommend that you make sure that you ask the bot to tell you the reference, like where did you find this, so that it doesn't
Oh,
hallucinate.
yes.
And
Yes.
then also, while sure you can deploy the chatbot externally, putting the human in the middle, in my
Yeah.
mind, is a much better starting point, right? Otherwise, you've
Yeah.
got to have a much longer testing period and parallel run. But putting that as a productivity tool for your team members, um, give them, I feel like if used correctly, actually is a great engagement tool. Um, yeah, because I think at the same time, people are worried about sort of the jobs. And I think some boards are thinking about this, like, what is the future of the workforce, and coming up and,
Yes.
asking the chief people officer for, or the
Yes.
CEO for that. And I think that's also a good direction for boards to take.
Totally. Yeah, I also, it's a little bit of a side note, and I probably need to go down this path with somebody else, but in terms of a fuller conversation. But in some ways, I worry about AI doing the inverted commas, the easy work, which leaves the deep thinking work for the humans, which is awesome, right? Like that is an awesome thing. But I think if humans only do deep thinking work, we also get really exhausted quickly. Like every now and again, it's nice to do just, I just want to, sort that out or do whatever. That actually gives our brains a break. So I'm going to be really interested, as I say, it's not for this conversation, but I'm interested to watch how that plays out in reality for humans and our human brains, because we can't be clever all the time. Like we need to take the breaks.
That's
Anyway.
why, and then I find that fascinating because that's why the paint by numbers are so popular, right? Like because we actually need to decompress. We can't just go at like 100 miles an hour all the time. I agree with that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if AI does the paint by numbers for us in our job, what is that? Yeah. Anyway, as I say, it's probably a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
Oh, Alice, so much in here. What are the key things you want people to take away from the conversation that we've had today?
So I think the first one is use for yourself. I do often tell the story when I look at my neighbour. I've got a neighbour who's 80-year-old and she uses ChatGPT and she's very tech savvy, and I think that's great. I think about like if I was to rewind that back at sort of 10, 20 years, people who can't use internet banking runs into a lot of I think our society is not built like that anymore, unfortunately. So I think if I fast forward another 20 years, if AI goes with the current trajectory, then we really all must learn it. I think that is that digital literacy is for everybody. So I think that's my personal, but also a sort of professional takeaway. The second one would be, as a board member, ask your CEOs and what is your AI and digital strategy? So, and really challenge them on sort of where it's going. So in terms of the upside case and in terms of the impact on talent. So I think those are really good conversations to have at the moment. And the last one would be to also mitigate your downside risks, right? I think the flip side of AI is that something like deepfake is now like there's no controls over deepfakes, and you sometimes deal with banks and they wind back the voice recognition for passwords because they can't tell what's genuine and what's not. And there was a case actually about 18 months ago where an architect firm in Hong Kong was speaking to their London head office on a video conference. And the management team, the finance team in Hong Kong thought they were speaking with a CFO in London. And on the call, the CFO was asking for $20 million to be wide out. And they thought that was a proper instruction. Obviously, that also, there's two things. One is AI is so fake, they thought they were talking to a real human. And then secondly is it actually really impacts on your existing controls, right? You wouldn't transfer money, without proper invoicing and instructions and sign off. But it's just sometimes, it really challenges us. So I think looking at your processes, like getting the management team to look at your processes and controls is really important to fight that deep fake and the unfortunately the downside of this emerging technology.
Wow. Okay. Whew. Whew. Oh my God, Alice, how can you prove to us you are really a human?
Yeah, I think this was this is exactly what I think it was at one of the AICD conference where someone said, look, maybe in 6 months' time, you always have to do an SMS back to the director's phone and enter that into your call so that you're talking to a real person, the right director, or it's a real director, especially if you're approving something important, right? Like I think that's sort of, or maybe it's not even that, that's just a baseline entry.
Yeah, that is so interesting. Oh gosh, okay. Rising anxiety, but good, Okay. Is there a resource you would like to share with the Take On Board community?
Yeah, so if you're interested generally in what AI AI will impact humanity. My co-CEO actually did a TED talk. It's last year in Sydney, so I think we'll share the link. It's on how AI will impact humanity, and it's fun watch. So have a go and see if you agree with some of the takeaways from that.
Excellent. I will have a little look at that. And yes, I love a fun TEDx that talks me through some interesting stuff as well. Oh, Alice, thank you. So helpful to be able to dig through some of this. Thank you for being open to the call. Thank you for coming and sharing. Thank you for giving me rising anxiety, but in a really useful, constructive way. Thank you so much for joining me on the Take On Board podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.